Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock.
And we made it.
We're recording late today. It's non-essential nights.
Yeah.
Settle down with that special someone and some silky sheets as we enamor you with fucking dumbass stories from the internet that only we care about.
And even then, it's kind of questionable sometimes.
Yeah, honestly. So just
that's not
cozy up as we desperately try to get through something that's boring.
I hope it's not boring, but for the third week in a row, I'm going back to the CreepyPasta well.
It's a fun well.
But if you haven't listened before, we don't always do that. We just do it 90% of the time. There is about 10% of the shows that have other content, but we like these. These are fun.
There's no rule to it, but creepypastas are fun because they're, they are very fun, very loose writing exercises, and that means I get to be very loose with my reactions to them, and I get to tend to overreact to
and ruin someone's day. I don't know if you saw, but we had our very first, the author of a creepypasta we wrote said something about they heard the podcast and responded on our Twitter channel, and it was the one that I can't remember if you read it or I read it already. It wasn't that far long ago. I think I read it because it was the one that drove you nuts about it was
the pacing,
80% setup. Yeah. And which I kind of felt a little bad because I felt we were a little harder on that than we normally are. But we didn't say anything.
It was so fucking tough to read through, though.
Yeah. And the response wasn't like, I'm going to fucking kill you guys. That was great. It's just like, appreciate you reading it and appreciate the feedback. It's like, all right, I got to go through the internet, make sure my home address is
That's usually how these things go for me. It would be easier if, he did just be like, I'm going to kill you. But, usually what happens is I'm a tremendous asshole, and then they're like, well, you could have been nicer. Could have been nicer, but hey, thanks. And it's like, oh, well, you're cool, and I'm still the major asshole, so everyone wins. Major chip asshole over here.
Yeah, the last couple times I've done these, I've kind of just looked for ones that sounded interesting but didn't really vet them, which we could tell. Not so much with the road.
Master at finding them the ones that drive me insane. So
there was two that I kind of skimmed all the way through that I didn't end up going with, and one of them I know would have been. I almost did it just to troll you, but it's like no, it was one of those that the story itself seemed, average but it had a super weak, kind of confusing ending, and that's what most of the comments were too. It's like I don't really get it. And it's like, I've already done that to us one too many times. Although we'll see, because I didn't skim through this one. So we maybe head there anyway. I basically did that thing where you read the first paragraph and the last one and say, it's English.
I don't even do that anymore.
So anyway, I've got the Song and Dance Man by, I got to scroll back down here because I'm going to fuck it up, Dylan Charles. Yeah, I was going to say Charles Dylan.
Oh, man. So, I think I've heard of this one. I don't know if I've read it.
It seemed like hopefully it'll be good. It seemed like it was going that way, but we'll see. There are few left alive who remember the Song and Dance Man. Time has claimed the ones that survived the long night, and I'm sure they went willing to meet their maker. Life takes on a strange tint after a night like that. The ones still left, Bill Parker, Sarah Carter, and Sam Tannen, don't talk about it. Sam is lucky. His brain started to turn to porridge a few years back, and now he has trouble figuring out how to put on his pants. Does sound lucky.
I think he got an early pine for those glory days.
I would be lying if I said that doesn't happen to me some days already, but he got an early reprieve from his memories. He doesn't wake up at night after night, the music still playing in his ears, with tears still drying on his cheeks. The Song and Dance Man came to Belle Carne with little fanfare in the fall of 1956. I had just gotten out of high school and was working as a stock boy at Handy's Hardware,
Handy's
I was there
hardware where you're never safe.
You think it was Handy Andy? Like, it almost has to be.
And then, like, they found out they were doing weird sex shit in the bathroom, and the name took on a whole new meaning.
Well, that's the thing. It's one of those signs where handies and hard are all in caps, and then the where is just kind of tacked up.
Handy's hard cock. I mean, where?
Where? Come in for some good screws. Whatever.
No, not that. Don't shut us down.
I was there the afternoon that Sarah Carter burst through the door, making the bell over the door jingle like mad. I wish I had some sound effects.
Does that bell have a name, or is it just a bell? Because it's not a doorbell. That's a different thing.
Belle Biv DeVoe is what its name is. George, you got to see what's been set up by the bandstand. There's this huge tent up there, and this man standing in the front yelling like a carnival barker. Sarah was out of breath.
Oh my God. You gotta see it.
See, I know. I was about to say, it makes me wonder what. Well, I guess I say wonder what time period this took. It literally just said 1956.
Sorry, you're not going to believe this. This guy's barking like a dog. It's fucking amazing.
But isn't that something that, like, you know, from our generation, if you're going to say that, like, people are getting excited about a carnival tent and a carnival barker, I immediately go to, that had to be a, like, old-timey thing, because we'd just be like...
Because we don't get excited.
No.
I remember we had the...
checking social media first, like...
We had the solar eclipse a few years back, and, like, everyone at my job stopped what they were doing to go look at it, and I kept working, because I didn't get excited about it at all. I was just like, I don't care.
Yeah... That like, part of you died a long time ago.
It's like, Ben, you got to see this. It's like the world's ending. I don't need to see it. I'm living
it. They're all looking up, and you're just standing there with your eyes closed, arms wide, like, take me, apocalypse.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
That's not an apocalypse. That's an asteroid blotting out the sun.
So anyway, George, you got to see this carnival barker, blah, blah, blah. Sarah was out of breath and had obviously run from the park and all the way down Main Street. She really liked carnivals. Her hair was whipsawed every which way, and one strand stuck to the end of her nose. She gave a quick puff and blew it out of her way, waiting for me to react. With Sarah, I was always 2 steps behind and running to catch up. The girl had energy in those days, and in unlimited supply. I hate those people, because
Again, I don't relate to these people at all. No excitement, no energy. So
you're the corpse at the end of the story. When
I'm 0 for 2 right now with George and Sarah.
I stopped rearranging the nails and said, "There wasn't anything up there when I walked by this morning. When did it go up?" I always love that, because people do that in real life too. Like, nothing could have possibly changed before, you know, in the time between when you went past something and somebody else did. How could that change without my approval? She shrugged her shoulders, a quick raise and drop. Dunno, but it's up, and you gotta see this guy. He's all dressed up, head to toe, and he can talk. Boy, he can talk. And that's another thing that is, you can tell it's like, old-timey, because not everybody could talk back then.
So he's a politician. That's what you're saying. Boy, he can talk a lot and say fucking nothing.
And he's got clothes on. You got to see this weirdo.
You're not going to believe it. This dude put on pants.
And talked. There's a tent, too.
Talked about putting on pants.
Sarah grinned from ear to ear and was gone. I didn't doubt that she was telling everyone in the gang, the ones that were still in town anyway. Most of us scattered to the 4 winds after graduation. Only a handful of us remained in town, and only a handful of us were on hand to witness the dance. I'm picturing like an actual gang too, not just like him. He's not talking about his friend group. It's, you know, they were in like the Crips or something.
Yeah. Well, that's not just friends. That's family. You would know that if you were part of it.
Should have watched Fast and the Furious.
Yeah,
I would have been.
Yeah.
I walked down to the bandstand by myself, not bothering to wait for the others. Most likely Sarah was already there waiting for us. I met up with Bill as I passed the drugstore, where he worked as a soda jerk. What the hell is Sarah talking about, George? I don't know. I was too busy jerking sodas, said Bill. She blew in here, then blew out again before I could ask her anything. Bill was a big guy, the tallest and heaviest guy in our class, and I just about cracked up the first time I saw him wearing that little peaked paper cap McCleary's makes his soda jerks wear. Bill doesn't really like to be laughed at, though, and after that knot under my eye went down, I made sure not to laugh at him
laugh
anymore.
even harder, because fuck you, that's funny. Bill, you're a big guy in a little hat. Laugh.
Don't fucking punch me in the face.
You fucking little clown. Now you look like more... Now it's more hilarious because you're a violent little clown.
Yeah, now I'm picturing he's one of those... Just one of the characters that you fight in Super Punch-Out.
Yeah.
Bill the soda jerk.
Bill doesn't like to be laughed at. That's why he took the most fucking comedic job a giant man could take.
Hey, in 1956, specifically, not prior,
business.
not after, yeah, that was like the job. Everybody looked up to soda jerks. He's a good guy aside from that temper. He was the best guy on the high school basketball team, too, though he's one of the few guys who got kicked out of a game. He threw another player halfway down the court, and they were on the same team, too. Bill said the other guy elbowed him in the gut. It had to have been by an accident. No one would have done it on purpose. Yeah, specifically if you're on the same team.
I'd fuck with Bill. Seems like
Pass
he
him
has
the
a
ball when he's
fucking
not
tube.
looking. Yeah, bounce it off the back of his head and knock off that little
Bill,
paper.
I don't like your shitty attitude. It's bringing the whole vibe of the team down. So.
And you got to picture this, that McCleary is such a dick that he made everybody wear the soda jerks wear their paper hats all the time. Like, not just at work, but like he's playing basketball in this tiny little paper hat. We both walked down the street, Bill smoking a cigarette, a habit that caught up to him in 1995 when they removed his right lung. At the end of Main Street, we crossed Buchanan and entered the park. Normally, at that point, we would have been able to see the bandstand perched on a hill near the center of the park. During the summer, there had been concerts, performances by the school marching band, a church choir singing some hymns, that kind of thing. Once, a couple kids from high school had put together a pretty good rockabilly group, but someone on the Parks Committee passed an ordinance that banned rock and roll in the park. Damn you. Small towns, you know. I added the damn you.
Damn you, small towns.
I know. I was reading that and like playing it in my head like Charleston Heston at the end of Planet of the Apes, just falling to your knees. Damn you, small towns. You banned rock and roll. Damn you to hell. And then, of course, Kevin Bacon comes in later and saves the day. But
and he restores small towns and rock and roll.
Mm-hmm. But now there was a huge faded yellow tent blocking the bandstand, like the kind in the circus or the kinds those old revival ministries like to use when they're feeling the spirit and they like to feel your wallet too. Oh, hey. Get some political commentary in there. Good job. There was already a pretty large crowd around the tent, and as Bill and I got closer, we could hear the fellow that Sarah had told us about. He sounded like a carnival barker, all right. Bill and I walked faster down the path that led to the tent. See, again, they're like, hey, a carnival barker, and they speed up. I'd be like, sounds uncomfortable. I'm going to go home. We pushed our way through the crowd up towards the tent and where we thought the man was. Come on, everybody, it's getting close, getting close. We're going to have ourselves a heck of a time tonight. Yes, indeed, a heck of a time. We'll be singing, we'll be dancing, I promise you that. And the song and dance man always keeps his promises.
Well, don't promise shit. That's weird.
Especially lofty shit
never
like that.
Trust a man who always keeps his promises. Because, like...
Or trust, it makes it, it's one of those things, I had the comments.
Trust he's gonna murder you, because he can make that promise.
When you're saying something so believable, and then you add, I promise, that kind of makes it sound less trustworthy. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I'll hand you a paper towel. I promise. It's like, wait, why did you have to add the I promise? Are you
dipping in chloroform? What the fuck?
It's like the, I was talking about a Twitter account, one of these conservative talking bobblehead. And like the first line of her Twitter bio is happily married. And it's like, really? Who are you trying to convince with that? Like, I don't know. It seems like the happily is unnecessary, but whatever.
I don't know. I think we should be more honest about our marriages, like begrudgingly married, you know, like.
Yeah. Spark faded years ago, married.
Yeah. I mean, those are the real couples, though. Those are people who really love each other. The ones who admit, like, the marriage sucks, but they love the person enough that, like, we're not going back on it.
Well, right. And that's exactly what I mean. The ones that run around telling everybody, yes, I'm happy. We're happily married. I'm so happy. I'm happy. I love my spouse. They're so great. I'm happy.
It's so
like,
great. It's like the first day that we dated. Every day is special. I was like, there's something wrong with you then. You guys can't, like, your marriage is demented if it's happily married. Are you happily sharing a bathroom with someone? Because you shouldn't be if you're really sharing a bathroom. Like, you should know all the ins and outs.
We still couldn't see him. Too many people were blocking the way. It looked like the whole town had shown up to see the song and dance man. Bill tugged on my sleeve and pointed. I followed his finger and got bug-eyed. It was Reverend Harper, the Baptist minister. I've lived a good long time, but I ain't ever seen a man that could thump a Bible harder than he. I like that he just randomly gets into the, like, time period.
Yeah. He kind of goes in and out, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm a big old fucker, but I've never seen a man
so hog swallowed in all my days.
Now us kids, we're going back to the song and dance man.
Harper preached against the evils of sin. Sin in drinking, sin in smoking reefer, sin in smoking tobacco, sin in lying, and most of all, sin in dancing. It's just dirty dancing.
Why is that most of all?
I don't know. Honestly, most Christian churches believe that song and dance is actually a very important part of worship. Now, that said,
I was going to say, I see that shit all the time in churches.
Right. Now, that said, it's not a lie that a lot of very
you see, he was against a very specific dance, twerking.
No flossing. God says flossers, and I agree with that. If you can floss, you're going straight to, well, maybe not straight to hell, but at least purgatory.
Thou shalt not tell the girls to get low.
One must always stay medium, never low. High is okay on occasion.
To get low is to get within the devil's pole.
Oh, you need a church. Should be wonderful.
We gotta have making up arbitrary rules. I'd have a good church.
We waved at him, Bill waving the hand that held the cigarette, and that old Baptist turned red as the Red Sea and turned and walked away. Bill and I grinned at each other and kept on walking towards the front, towards the song and dance man. Seems like jokes on them. They're like, haha, that stupid preacher that doesn't like song and dance. And it's like, well, you're all going to die, clearly.
Well, he's like, well, they don't die because this is
this guy
flashback, right?
Yeah.
But
but it sounds like there was...
Like, their way to stick it to the preacher is like, hey, I'm smoking a cigarette, and the preacher just has nothing to do but like, he's like,
you kids,
oh, you fuckers. All right, so Harper doesn't like drinking, smoking reefer, smoking tobacco, lying, and most of all, dancing. Again, I don't have anything in common with any of the characters yet. It's very important you can relate to somebody. Right now, I'm on the edge of thinking it's the song and dance man.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Well, except for I don't see song or dance really in your... Well, that's not true because you...
But I do always keep my promises.
Yeah. Finally, we broke through the crowd, and there he was. He stood on an old crate, splintered and looking like it was on the verge of collapsing under his feet. And those are the best kind of crates to stand on. It just adds that edge of, like, life or death. On the grass beside him lay a black fiddle case with gold trim along its edges. It looked old, older than the crate, older than the town. It seemed like something ancient. He was all angles, all knees, elbows, and shoulders. He was tall and gangling, his body moving and bopping to the rhythm of his words. He wore a red and white pinstripe jacket, looking like he belonged in a barbershop quartet. A straw hat sat on his head, always getting pushed back or pulled forward by his long-fingered hands. Long, six-fingered hands. I started when I saw that. I had read that some folks are born with 6 fingers, but reading about something and seeing it are 2 different things. His eyes just about flashed blue lightning as he spoke, and sparks nearly flew from those white teeth as he just never stopped talking. He didn't stop for breath, for questions, or anything. See, that's something I can relate to. Like, when I get going, I just...
Yeah. No, that's why we're so tired afterwards. We've basically held our breath doing the show for 40 minutes to an hour.
He just kept up that pattern like his very soul depended on it. All right, all right, all right. Just like Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We're getting close. We're getting real close. Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Are you ready to dance?
Are you ready to
sing? Are you ready to smoke tobacco and reefer and drink? Haha, fuck you, Baptist minister.
I want this guy to be played by McConaughey. Because I'm ready to play my fiddle. Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
It's a little known fact, McConaughey actually has 6 fingers, too. They just very clever camera angles. You don't normally notice it.
Got a fiddle at my feet, and I'm ready to play.
All right, all right.
Sometimes you got to ready to make those strings sing. Can you believe it?
Now, if you'll follow me over here, I'll get into my... I forget what kind of cars he's always... It's Lincoln? Is it? I think it's Lincoln.
How dare you? You know damn well, like, that was my joke the moment your kid was born. Don't tell me you forgot about his cars.
Well, I almost said Cadillac for a second. And I'm like, he's not classy enough for a Cadillac. It's got to be something that wants to be a Cadillac.
Excuse
and I was right. It's a Lincoln.
Me? The Cadillac is not existential enough for McConaughey. How the fuck are you going to journey down life's path in a Cadillac? Disgusting.
Now I want to see a Lincoln commercial where he's sitting there driving at night, staring off into nowhere, playing a fiddle with 6 fingers. Like, just doesn't say a word. There's no words to the commercial. It doesn't even say, like, buy a Lincoln. It's just 30 seconds of him playing a fiddle while driving a car.
He basically has that. There's, like, the commercial where, like, he's out in the middle of nowhere in this fucking car, and he's in the back seat talking to himself in the front seat. They don't say anything about the car, and then he just starts randomly laughing like a fucking maniac. Like,
I really hope he writes those commercials. They're just like...
God, he has to, right?
It's hard to imagine an ad agency like coming up with that. They're just like, fuck, just take a camera and a car out to the desert and just let him go. You know that like 30-second commercial, there's like 8 hours worth of film on the cutting room floor.
Dude, there are like... So I will sometimes, if I'm having trouble sleeping, I'll like throw on like these like 8-hour-long Sounds of Storms and shit videos. There's like compilations of just the commercials where he's talking in the rain. And there's not like 8 hours of original footage. It's like a 15-second commercial, and you gotta like watch Matthew McConaughey like just sort of be fucking Matthew McConaughey in a coffee shop over and over again. And it probably helps you sleep. I don't know, but I was
but it would have to give you nightmares, right? Like
I don't know.
Like that's the CreepyPasta. I'm gonna make a story. It's kind of a mix of like Nightmare on Elm Street, where Freddy gets you in your sleep, but it's just you wake up and Matthew's sitting next to your bed just talking.
He might get you, but I think me and Matthew McConaughey would be like best friends. I think he would really like me, and I know I would dig him and his cars.
I'd just yell at him for making so many fucking rom-coms and say, get the hell out of my house.
I would be like, I get it. You had to do that shit to be able to dive deep for True Detective.
And Lincoln.
And Lincoln commercials.
Yeah, they wouldn't let him do that shit if he wasn't as well known as he is. That's for sure, yeah.
Oh, God, I would love a car car. Like, Ford's just like, let's just get some fuck. To, like, say whatever's on his mind. It would be like if they hired us.
Oh, I've got so many clients that go off on like the weirdest like tangent stories, way worse than us. And
just my whole commercial for a car would just be like, why do they still make manual shifts? There's no reason for them.
No. That has way too much to do with cars, though. You have to be like, have you ever noticed how in your refrigerators you can't quite fit everything that you need to fit? Wouldn't it be nice to have a refrigerator that fit everything that you wanted to fit?
You ever notice how when you're pooping, you need at least 2 squares of toilet paper, no matter what toilet paper you bought?
But if you use 3, sometimes you feel you
feel like you're being wasteful. But then again, it's your butt, and shouldn't you treat it?
And then it just ends with you repeating, "Shouldn't you treat it?" And it never says the car or anything. Just
poop butt, ain't it a journey?
Life is a highway. Ride it fast because you really got to shit. Anyway, all right. We're getting close. We're getting real close. Yes, we are. Are you ready to dance? Are you ready to sing? Because I'm ready to play my fiddle. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Got a fiddle at my feet, and I'm ready to play. Ready to make those strings sing. Can you believe it? Again, that's one of those, like, can you believe I'm going to play a fiddle? It's like, yeah, I can.
Can't you believe it?
He'd clap his hands, and that's as close to a pause as he was willing to do. Sarah and Sam came up to us now, having found us in the crowd. Sarah elbowed me in the rib and said, "What'd I tell you? Looks like he should have been in a carnival trying to get us to see a bearded lady or something." That's basically what he's doing, though. Like,
there's some crazy shit, right?
Why is the carnival the epitome of, like... It's like, oh, it's almost like a carnival. Isn't that exciting? He should have been in the carnival. I mean, he could have been in the big...
I could believe, like, them being excited about a carnival, but why is she not selling it for the carnival? Instead, she's like, hey, guys, you got to come quick. There's a man. You know?
Yeah. Sam nodded his head in greeting to us, which caused his glasses to slide down his nose, and he gave them a short push back up where they belonged. He was as tall as Bill, but nowhere near as built. He was the smart guy in our gang.
You had to have someone like guy.
Yeah, and the smart guy has to be skinny and tall and glasses. I mean, that's how you get smart. You had to have someone like him around to tell how to do things, like take apart the principal's car and rebuild it in the school gym. Not that we ever did anything like that. Wink.
That's a good story. You should tell that story.
"What's he selling?" asked Sam. "A dance, I figure," I said. "What's it cost?" The song and dance man must have heard him because he said, "What does it cost, I hear you ask? Why, it don't cost $1, and it don't cost $0.25, and it don't cost a dime. Folks, this will cost you nothing. Just get on in and dance to the song all night long."
You're fucked.
Oops, did I say that out loud? Ignore that, folks.
Okay,
I got a fiddle, and I'm
cost
ready
you
to
anything
play.
Except your precious time.
We all looked at each other. It was a good deal.
Well, hard to beat a bargain.
A little free music and space to dance. There wasn't much to do in town back in those days, and there still isn't. Except for maybe the jobs that you were doing when you were like, hey, there's something more interesting than work. Let's all go see that. Like,
to be fair, I'm reading along with you. You skipped the paragraph that he said, like, I was almost done with my shift anyway. So.
Well, then I take that back, author. You're a genius.
I'm saying he planned for us to try to pick this shit apart. This was a trap.
The song and dance man stopped now, a minor miracle in and of itself. He dug deep in his pocket, pulled out a gold watch, checked the time, and then grinned a grin that must have shown every one of his teeth. He pocketed the watch and said, "Folks, it's time for the dance, so come on in. Come on in, everyone, because it's time for the dance to begin." And with that, he hopped down from his crate, grabbed up with the fiddle and darted through the tent flaps. Sarah, Bill, Sam, and I nearly got mowed over in the rush to get inside. People really like free music. But we were still the first ones in. We stopped short when we pushed aside those big old tent flaps, but were quickly driven inside. I can now starting to sound like a porno. It was huge inside.
Gross. These giant tent flaps.
Tent flaps. We got pushed inside quickly, driven. It was huge inside. There was a hardwood floor beneath our feet that looked like it must be oak. A dark, dark oak, polished to a mirror shine.
Oak.
See, these are all innuendos.
They are.
There were candles and holders all along the tent pole posts, and when I looked up, I couldn't see the ceiling for all the darkness. It was like looking up at a starless night sky, where the moon didn't dare show her face. The crowd kept driving us. More and more people poured in, and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't just the young people either. There was Mrs. Crenshaw, our junior year English teacher, who was in her 50s. There was Mr. Hoskins.
Get out
the
of here.
principal.
Those dancing's for young people. Get out.
Scat.
Scat.
There was the good old Reverend Harper, still looking embarrassed, but also like he couldn't help himself. It really was the whole damn town. Hell, even the mayor was there with his wife, standing and talking with the chief of police, if you can believe it. Soon everyone was inside, and the murmur from all the talking was nearly deafening. It was already getting warm in there, and I was feeling cramped and claustrophobic. We were all looking for the song and dance man to see where he had gone. No one looked up, so no one saw him until the first pull of his fiddle bow. He was there on the center tent pole, sitting on a small wooden platform about 20 feet off the floor. God knows how he got there, because there certainly wasn't any ladder going up. He dangled his feet over the edge and held his fiddle in one hand and the bow in the other. The fiddle and bow seemed to be made of that same dark wood that the floor was, and gleamed in the candlelight like a thing alive. Almost doubted that the fiddle even needed the song and dance man to make its strings hum. We all looked up at him, and he grinned and jumped to his feet, while the crowd gasped, worried that he might plummet into their midst. And then he began to play. He made those strings sing. I haven't heard anyone play like that before or since, and I thank God for that every day. It made the air around us crackle and spark. It loosened the joints and jolted the mind. You felt the urge to move deep in the bone, buried in the marrow. I grabbed Sarah's hands, and we began to move across the floor, and everyone followed suit. Some with partners and some without. Some were doing the foxtrot, some were doing the waltz, and some of us were doing the twist.
Nobody doing anything good.
The Baptist minister was pissed off because he was doing I don't know. I'm out of... He used up all the dance moves.
The rockaway.
I know. Yeah. We danced, moved, shucked, jived, rocked, and rolled. I passed Reverend Harper, moving his feet in a clunky box step with Eloise Grindle, an old battle axe of a Catholic.
That battle axe. That's how you know he's old.
I like to think it was a literal battle axe, like...
He named a Lois Grindle.
Yeah. I saw the mayor's wife waltzing with Dan Adams, one of our firemen. Uh-oh. I swirled with Sarah, moving across the floor, bumping and jostling with the people around us. It was hot and getting hotter in there.
Hell yeah, it was.
And it wasn't long before it smelled of sweat and bodies moving against bodies.
Fuck yeah, dude.
See,
it's getting fucking sexy in this club.
I told you. Those were all... Like he was leading up to it through metaphor.
And Reverend Harper got lowest of all.
I felt dizzy, but we kept dancing together. Kept dancing and not stopping. It was a while before I realized that the song and dance man was singing too, but in a language I didn't understand. He lorded over us, standing on that platform, making his fiddle sing and sing. His bow rose and fell, slid back and forth, side to side. He played like he talked. There were no breaks or pauses, just a manic deluge of tunes while his tongue curled around words that had no business being said in this world. I gave my head a shake as I spun with Sarah, and I realized my legs were tired. My feet ached and my lower back was beginning to throb. I checked my watch and realized that we had been dancing for a solid hour. I shook my head again, trying to shake off the dozy feeling that was clouding my thinking. "Sarah," I cleared my throat. I had only spoken in a whisper. My tongue felt thick and funny. I tried again. "Sarah," louder this time, but she still didn't respond, and we kept dancing. I shook her, but she didn't respond. I kept shaking her until I realized I was doing it in time with the music.
Being my girlfriend in rhythm.
So I just tried to stop, and I couldn't. I couldn't stop. Underneath the fog, I began to feel frightened. I began to see the faces of the other people now. I saw their terror. Reverend Harper's face had grown redder than it had been before. "I told you dance was bad!" Sweat poured down his face, but still he kept moving, twirling.
"You made this town too sexy."
Twirling Mrs. Grindle around and around, her head lolling from side to side. She had fainted, but her feet were still moving.
That's probably a pretty cool-looking dance move. If your head's just, like, knocked out, but your feet are still...
Yeah, you call it the Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
We moved past Bill, who danced with Susie Watkins, and I saw her frightened eyes darting around the room.
Bill has that effect on people.
Right. I mean, he described how big he was and how bad a temper he had. She was just terrified. But Bill bobbed his head in time with the music, and his glassy eyes looked at nothing in particular. The song and dance man laughed from his perch and kept playing, tapping his feet. His eyes were glowing in that dark, humid place. They glowed, and light glanced off from the bow with each sweep. I heard a scream and swiveled my head and to watch a woman drop to the floor holding her leg. She had cramped up. Oh, no, not cramp. I was envious. She got to stop. She got to rest. My own legs felt like dead wood, and the ache in my back had deepened. Then her partner stepped on her ankle, and I heard the crunch from across the room. He was still dancing, his eyes blank and empty as he moved. She screamed again and started to crawl away, but instead stood up. She started to dance, bringing her weight down on that broken ankle again and again and again. I turned away, but I couldn't block the sound of her sobbing. The music ran on.
So the thing we gotta remember right now is that it's free, guys.
This is such a good deal. I checked my watch again, and it was 3 hours now. We didn't flag or falter. We kept up the same speed as the fiddle, the damning fiddle. Wrapping our feet against the floor, never mind the blisters that burst, never mind the broken toes or broken ankles, never mind that deep pain buried in the spine that refused to go. Never mind old hearts and bad knees. We kept up that frantic pace as one mass, a bobbing, thumping, jumping creature with one mind. Reverend Harper died at one point. I watched it happen. He was holding up the still fainted Miss Grindle, whose feet still moved to the music, when he dropped her and fell to the floor. He twitched once, his feet beating a quick staccato rhythm, and then was still. Miss Grindle got back up and kept on moving. I watched Harper as I danced, trying to see if he was breathing. He wasn't. I swear to you, he wasn't. But he still got back up. He was dead, but he still got back up and began to dance again. He turned to look at me and grinned, the song and dance man's grin. His eyes were red, filled with blood from whatever had broken in his brain. I watched as a single red tear rolled down his cheek. I shut my eyes and kept moving. Harper wasn't the last. He probably wasn't the first. The old and the sick were the first to drop, no matter what it was, exhaustion, heart attack, hemorrhages somewhere deep inside. They died, and then they got back up and kept dancing, grinning their grins. I passed Lizzie and Sam. He had lost his glasses at some point. His eyes darted around, terribly aware. I looked at his leg and saw a jut of some bone tearing through his denim jeans. There was a trail of blood behind him, and as he swirled, a spray landed on the legs of the people around him. But It was kind of a horrific scene until they pointed that. Now I'm picturing just one of those like B-movie horror movie things where they've got like a hose hooked up, just like squirting blood. He stepped on that broken leg, twirled on it, and jumped on it, all in time with that fiddle. The night passed. I remember stepping on something at one point and realized I had just crushed Miss Dempsey's right hand. She was lying on her back on the dance floor.
I accidentally crushed her shit.
Need a hand, Mrs. Dempsey? She had been stepped on time and again. I could even see a man's shoe print on her stomach. Her head had been caved in, and her chest beneath her dress had a sunken look, and still she was trying to get up and keep moving. The smell of blood mixed with the sweat, and I couldn't breathe anymore. God, that was me. I mangled that sentence, not him. The air was thick, and from all around I could hear cries and screams, but nothing that drowned out the fiddle or the song and dance man's singing. And then it stopped. I danced one more step and then stopped myself. I looked up at the platform. We all did, craning our necks upward. He was checking his pocket watch. All right, folks, that's all for tonight. The dancing is done and the morning has come. You may leave if you can walk, and you should walk quick, because the song and dance man's gonna be gone.
Wait, so why do we have to walk quick if you're leaving?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering.
Like, if that's what we want. So.
The only thing I was thinking
the only
is
thing
like,
you would say is, like, I'm going to start again. Like,
yeah, or like if you don't get out of the tent, which by now he's clearly got some kind of terrible like powers, like maybe if you don't get out of the tent you're just trapped forever or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
We all stood there like stunned cattle, then marked to the tent flaps. I think that's probably supposed to be marched. No one ran because they couldn't. It was a miracle we could walk. Sarah stepped ahead of left, but I stayed behind. Am I reading that? You're reading along. Am I fucking this up, or is this suddenly...
Start again. Let's give me the paragraph. Because I lost place.
We all stood there like stunned cattle.
Okay, let me try. We all stood there like stunned cattle, then marked to the tent flaps. No one ran because they couldn't. It was a miracle we could walk. Sarah stepped ahead of left, but I stayed behind.
Okay, so yeah, it's not me being stupid. I don't know. I think there's a couple typos there. That's all right. It's CreepyPasta.
Yeah, I get it.
I turned and looked and saw at least 20 people still standing there. Harper was among them. They were all grinning, their eyes empty. They stood and made no sign of wanting to leave. Go on now, friend. The song and dance man has what he wants, but he'd be glad to add you too, if you tarry and dally too long. I looked up at him and saw him smile, and then I turned my back to him and left the tent. When I turned back again, it was gone, along with the people inside. See, I was right. That's why he said get out. You have won the car. You've lasted through the dance party. Go claim your Lincoln. Matthew McConaughey's waiting to give it to you. That's the story of what happened. The others won't tell it or pretend it never happened. Never mind the 20 people that vanished that night, the mayor's wife included. They'd rather not think about it. Sarah and I took Sam to the hospital in the next county, far from the folks that knew what had happened. They had to remove his leg. Sam was quiet before and quieter still after, pulling odd jobs that a one-legged man could do, like hopping up and down. A bellhop, I guess. That's what I should have said.
Nah. Song and dance hop.
Yeah. He doesn't move around much nowadays, just sits on his porch, a cane across his lap, and massages the stump with his hand. Says it bothers him on cold nights, and warm nights, and wet nights, and dry nights. I get it.
Just my body. It turns out it just hurts.
Yeah.
I get it.
Bill left and joined the army, the best place for a mentally scarred person to go.
Somebody who's like a minor inconvenience leads to him throwing a man through a fucking wall.
And then goes through some paranormal hell shit and is like, yep, army best fit.
You know where you belong? Viet fucking Nam.
So Sam was the guy from Full Metal Jacket, right?
except that, like, Full Metal Jacket, the guy, like, gets turned into a maniac.
Yes.
Bill's there. He wears a silly hat, and then he's like, don't look at my silly hat.
Bill showed up, and that asshole drill sergeant said something, and Bill was already psycho, and they said, you know what, Bill? Damn it. You're a fine drill sergeant. You're promoted. You're too talented to waste over as a private. Anyway, he joined the Army, stayed in long enough to fight in Vietnam, and won a bunch of medals. He came back and settled down to drink and drink hard. And if you want to find him, you can find him in Eddie Dixon's bar. No matter how drunk he gets, though, he still doesn't talk about that night. None of us saw much of Sarah after. She came through the best, but that's how she always was. She left and went to college, but like Bill, got pulled back to Belcarne. She teaches over at the high school now, teaching English to the juniors. I stayed here, plugging away at the hardware store. I ran it for a while, but now I don't do much of anything. I just sit around with Sam, talking about things sometimes, though not often. If I stay too long, I see his eyes go glassy behind those Coke bottle lenses, and he'll disappear into himself. And I'll catch him humming a faint trace of a song, and the hair on my neck stands on ends, and goosebumps rise on my arms in great knots. My foot will start to tap out a small bead on the hardwood porch, and a big wide grin will spread across Sam's face. The grin of the song and dance man. The end.
I like that one.
I do too.
I had heard it before, but you know, there's a lot of silly shit in it, but that's, you know, most creepypastas have some, and it's good.
Yeah, but it's kind of one of those too that if you get past that and you think about the realities of this like situation that they've created, like that is an awful, like, can you imagine like having I can barely walk around on my like crappy knees and like feet after I've been on them for a half hour already. Yeah. And like that like thing where something's driving you to dance on a shattered leg and people are dropping dead around you, but then I love the idea of dancing
the song
zombies.
Is so fucking good that I ain't quitting.
The Waltzing Dead or whatever, where they're like, brains, but first dance.
This does have a little bit of that like long setup that like makes me wonder, like, maybe it's just me. Like, maybe people like those like intros that drag out for a while, but to me it's like, I don't know. I'm starting to think like maybe to me like the perfect story is like 3 paragraphs long.
This one was certainly, I don't think, as grievous as an offender at that as the like I drove down a road or whatever that. Yeah, I found a road, I think is what it was, or I found a. And this isn't that's not me saying, that story's so bad I can't remember it. I can't remember what I read, 3 hours ago. Yeah. But anyway, it was a little slow, and a part of that is. It was a long day and we were recording late, so I was a little clunky reading it too.
But it was still that thing of like, guys, you got to check this out. There's a guy and he'll play shit and he talks a lot and he takes a while to be like, fucking yeah, I want to go see that. And it's like it doesn't. I guess to me, it's not the length. It's like. The awkwardness of being like, even for a small town, I'd be like, so the fuck what?
Yeah. But I think part of that is not... I'm curious, because I've talked about it before, and maybe I just see similarities because it's things that I like, but the whole initial premise, it goes a lot darker than he ever did, but the whole initial setup's a lot like Bradbury. Bradbury does... Part of that's because of his time, when he grew up. He was an older writer, grew up through that generation, but he managed to capture that kind of the movie quality of the past that we all picture. The grandeur, the carnival barkers, the people being excited for the circus coming into town. He had a lot of stories like that. They tend to have been being told from a younger kid's perspective, though, when everything, like, one of the things I like about Bradbury is he was really, really good at capturing like the childlike aspect where you're still young enough that everything is new and kind of magical and kind of unknown, a little scary. This is a little harder at that because these are kids that like graduated high school, and you still want us to believe that they all like were so excited about a song and dance man. You know,
Turns out they were
Barker.
right to be excited. He's damn good.
That's the thing. He's no devil. He's just like really, really good.
That's the thing, and I kind of like the honesty of just like he didn't like get your soul or some shit. He was just like a few people died, a lot of people got hurt, and he's like, I'm so damn good at this fiddle.
Right. But no, I like it. And the other thing I really like is it kind of ties back to it's like our first or second episode where you covered the dancing fever, the actual like
yeah, I kind of liked that connection, and I think the thing it did well, in my opinion, was like it did just enough to describe the song and dance man himself that like you could imagine it, like, you know, that it, like, it really, it didn't go too far in painting the picture, but it gave you just enough that like this scene got really like it played out really well. And
it does that, like I said, it captures that.
I don't know why that old bitch reverend was in there at all if he was gonna just frown upon shit, but
yeah, but well, I think that was the whole point. Is like there's some like supernatural pull where like even people like him that shouldn't be attracted to it, which again would explain why these teenagers.
A man of God being like, "Oh, you kids should have like been strong enough to resist any temptation from the song and dance man."
Oh, but that's the twist. The song and dance man is God. You're meant to think he's the devil, but that's God. He was coming down to reap.
He's a rock god.
Yeah.
See the way he got people to do the twist until their fucking legs fucking broke?
See, when it's your time, it's your time. And when it's like one or two people's time that happens to be at the same, you know, concurrent, you just walk down and in your robes and touch their hand and take them to heaven. When it's 20, you throw a damn party. I mean, that's like, it's like graduation. It was just, but anyway, I do like the horror aspect. If you really think about like, you know, you're dancing yourself to death and there's nothing you can do to stop it, but also that like the similar aspect, but being trapped in your own head, like where you're fully aware of what's going on. And then what makes it even like more creepy horror to me is not just that our protagonist was the one strong enough of will to like, he couldn't break out of it, but he was the one strong enough to like figure out something's going on. But they describe like everybody like seeing other people's eyes dart back and forth, and like there's something kind of primal like fear about that, like just having loss of all control. So I like that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I did skim through this one this time, and it seemed like a good story, and I'm glad I did, because it was nice to read one that I do like it.
Yeah. Like,
was it perfect? No. Did I have two sentences in a row that completely confused me?
Here's the fact. I got, you know, pulling back the curtain, I got it into CreepyPastas because they were, like, a lot of the first ones I read were genuinely awful. And not that I read on this show, but just, like, for my own amusement. Like we said it since we started doing these episodes, you've never written anything and not wrote something bad. Right. Like it's a criteria for being a writer is you write something that usually kind of sucks. But there's like a lot of like cool shit in like a bad field, you know, like, you know, so even if something's not written perfectly, it's like cool ideas come out of a lot of this stuff. And, you know, and there's a lot of like none of these are written in like vacuum. So like these guys come back and grow as writers, and it's interesting. Yeah.
And again, it's hard to assume because you don't know how much time they put into stuff, but, we've read a few of them on here that the thing that we always talk about is that a lot of times creepypastas, they're put up as like blog posts. So I think a lot of times most people write them, they do what I would do, and they either just go straight in and start typing them up, and then it doesn't mean you don't reread it a couple times. Or if you're like me, maybe a dozen times, and you still miss stuff.
Yeah.
But they're not heavily edited generally. They're not. You don't sit down over the course of weeks and craft your plot to eliminate any holes and to cut down the unnecessary stuff. So it's not fair to say we'll point it out because that's what we're contributing when we read it.
Yeah,
right. But certainly, again, with this and all the ones we read, we're not saying, oh, what a crappy writer, or I can't believe they did that, because...
Not at all, because like most of the people I would even say on that story I didn't like a couple weeks ago, I would even... And by very virtue of the fact they are still writing, and I don't... Right, they are a better writer than me.
There's that.
But even when I was writing, like they were, I would say they were probably, like I said with that one, my whole issue with it was pacing, and that is something you can only learn from, I think, like not saying like you need to learn it from me, because I clearly was an asshole about it, trying to be funny, but like you can only really learn how something should be paced by people's reaction to it, right? Like, because nobody knows how to carefully craft a perfect plot their first time trying to write a thing.
Shit, I'd argue that there's some very successful, famous authors that still don't know how to fucking
still don't get it. Yeah, and so like all of this is it is fun to pick the writing apart and like deconstruct it and think about writing in a kind of analytical way, but ultimately we're two jackasses having fun with scary stories, and it's...
I was about to say, what anybody listening now has listened over the past couple of weeks is about to say is, you know what, you two assholes need to just like move on the podcast to other stuff and join a writing group where you do that. But the problem with that, I'll point out, is then I would have to write stuff and to listen to people critique it, which thank you.
I got shit to do.
It's part of that, and I don't want to take criticism. I want to give it. It's way easier.
So bravo to all these creepypasta writers for being much better sports about this than I would be. I can't take one fucking bad comment about this podcast. I fucking lay in bed for like 2 weeks being like, I can't believe they didn't like it when I said poop butt ass.
Butt boat, butt masters or whatever that was, butt blaster. I can't remember now.
Ass blasters.
Ass blaster. There we go. Yeah.
Well, no, bass blasters. That was it. Ass blasters was a real thing. Bass blasters were like the butt cheeks you put on a boat.
Put on your boat, right?
And bankrupted me, and my wife left.
Yeah. Sorry about that, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I gave her the money for the plane ticket, but
when I tried to like give her own custom model of Bass Blaster's butt cheeks for her boat that were modeled after her own ass, she got really upset.
I don't know why.
And she
it's
said,
flattering.
And she said, like, people are going to use these wrong, as like you.
I already did.
It's already so wrong.
Anyway, I was actually, my plan was to write my own story for this week. I just didn't have time. So we will do that again, or at least I will. I want to. So
it'll happen.
So keep that in mind too.
We're not, it's not out of shame that we don't put ourselves in our own line of fire. It's pure laziness. It would take a lot to turn the gun around, but we will. Give it time. That's the show this week. Thank you all for listening, and
that's it.
That's it.
That's all I got.
It's way too late.
It is.
Non-essential nights.